fellow BTMF students. My colleagues and I are doing a virtual career fair where we will be interviewing people who uphold the careers you guys aspire to have in the future. Today, we are interviewing a teacher by the name of Mary Chowhan, who is a longtime math teacher at BTMF. Welcome, Ms. Chowhan.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Okay, so the first question that we have for you is there anything you'd wish you known as a first-year teacher?
I wish that when I went into teaching, that when I was in college, they would have had a course where we could have met with existing teachers to get their input of what we would be doing. And in college, they teach you all of the theory. But when you get into the actual classroom, you find out that the theory goes out the window when you're doing your practical application. So that is the only thing that I wish I knew ahead of time, was that I could have gone and spoken to some teachers and had them tell me what was the first day of school like, what is it like to get your paperwork done, things of that nature.
Thank you for that. The second question we have for you is, should a future teacher work in a public or private setting, and why?
That really depends on your personality and your bank account. Usually private settings don't pay as well as public schools. And that's even different. I teach here in New Jersey. My son teaches down in Virginia. The top salary in Virginia is $60,000. That's about our step 5. So I would say if you have a personality that is a little bit more sheltered, then maybe you want to go to a private school. But if you have a personality that you love engaging with people and you're always up for a challenge and you respect all different sorts of individuals, I really believe in the public education system in the United States. I think we can afford all students a fantastic education that they can go on to many careers. So for me, public education was always the way to go. I do have a friend who teaches in a private school. And there you have other pressures than what you have in a public school. So it's up to the person and their personality.
Thank you for that, and I totally agree with you. The third question we have for you is, what's the most challenging part about teaching?
Right now, remote learning. This is something I've been teaching since 1979. Things have changed so much. So we went from no calculators. I'm a math teacher. So no calculators, everything was done paper and pencil, to incorporating calculators in the classroom, to incorporating Prometheus boards and all different sorts of technology. So I think that at this point in time is the most challenging thing, because now we're totally virtual. So how do I interact with my students? How do I keep them engaged? That to me is the most challenging part right now.
Thank you. And as much as it's a hard time for teachers, it's a hard time for students as well.
Definitely.
I'm going to ask my colleague Jennifer if she has anything to say to you.
Hi, Ms. Chowhan.
Hi,
have
Jennifer.
a few questions to ask you. What's the worst lesson you ever taught?
Well, I think it depends on how you look at it. So I had a lesson a number of years ago where if an administrator came into my classroom and just came in for that little snapshot, they may have been shocked. But if you looked at the whole picture, it was actually a lesson where we were talking about ratio and proportion, and how when you have a bigger quantity, and this even goes with marketing, supply and demand is really what the lesson was on. And I had a group of students that were very streetwise, and they related the whole thing to selling drugs. Well, they totally understood my lesson when I flipped it from just talking about theoretical to talking about them selling drugs on the corner. And they got it. That was one of the best lessons that they had ever done. They all did their homework. They all did fantastic. They understood the concept. As an administrator, if an administrator walked in, they would have said, "What are you doing?" Because, you're not supposed to teach to that. You're supposed to teach to the concept. But I went to where my students were. They were the ones that brought that topic up, and they were like, oh, so you mean if I've got this and I sell it for that? So it was very engaging. It was, as a teacher, it was very scary because you have to worry about where do you go that you may cross that line. So that would probably be what I would say from the student perspective was very successful. From my perspective, it was a little bit scary because I didn't want to get in trouble and I didn't want anyone thinking that I'm a proponent of selling illegal drugs.
Thank you. To piggyback off of what you just said, I think that's the problem now with the school systems. It's like they want you to teach one way and expect everybody to pick up that one way that they want you to teach, or they expect everyone to grasp onto that learning way when really it's supposed to be how the teacher can interact with the kids and how the teacher can break it down to the best of their ability to the kids, because not everyone is going to understand the educational way, or not even just the educational way, but the way they want us to work, the way they want you guys to word it, or the way they want you guys to go about every lesson. So I feel like that's why kids are failing. Not saying that it's okay, but that plays a big role on why kids are failing. Because if the teachers teach the way that the kids can understand, I don't understand what's the problem with that. If the kids are learning, that should just be it.
I agree with you. I can give you another example. Before all of this standardized testing came in, I used to do projects with my class. And a number of years ago, every Friday, we worked on a huge project. And the kids all had to create their own business. One group wanted to do a radio station. So they had to research what sort of licensing did they need? Did they need to contact the FCC? What sort of facilities did they need? And then at the end, they did a presentation. And they really liked it. They really got into it. I had another group that set up a charter school. Another group set up their own clothing line. So it tailored to the individual. Now with all of this testing and with having to do for math, Alex, I don't have time to be able to get through my curriculum and do the projects that are going to give the practical application and make the kids interested in it. Because maybe you're not a good book learner, but you're very good at figuring out all the pieces of the puzzle and putting it together. Or maybe you're very good at artwork and you would be the ad department for that group. Being able to have the flexibility to do projects goes right into what you were saying, where people learn different ways. And you're either a hands-on learner, you are a cerebral learner, you're a visual learner. And a lot of people are a combination. So I do agree with you. There are times now where we are limited to the way that we can present something. So we may not be reaching as many kids as we would in the past when we had the flexibility to go outside of the box a little bit and to do a project.
110% I agree. Just like virtual learning, a lot of people grades has plummeted, their attendance has went down, because it's like it's harder this way. It's harder for everybody this way. Mm-hmm. It's harder for kids to log on in the morning because they're not forced to get up and walk to school. They're not forced to get up and have their parents drop them off. It's harder for kids to stay focused on what they got to do or how to do it because they didn't get a clear understanding within the 30 minutes of having a class period. So this is just a hard way that we have to adjust. Luckily, we're seniors, but for the freshmen, sophomore, and juniors, we don't know how long this is going to last.
Now imagine being a kindergarten student, and this is the only way that you've been learning. You know, we complain at the high school level, but I have friends that teach in the elementary and especially the kindergarten teachers. They are very much into, we have to be hands-on, and you can't. But this isn't something that we chose or you chose or the school board chose. We are learning remotely because it's what's safest for us during a pandemic. And hopefully we get the vaccines and people actually take the vaccines and we'll be able to come back together. And hopefully you guys will have a normal graduation. And maybe, you know, hopefully you'll be able to have your prom. But while we're out, all of those things are tabled. So it's frustrating, not only for the students, it's frustrating for the teachers, and it's frustrating for the administration too.
True. So that was a very good question, I guess. We had a lot to talk about with that question. But the next question that I have for you is, how should a teacher stay organized?
So that to me is the biggest thing that new teachers have issues with. I've been a mentor teacher for quite a few years now, and that is the hardest thing to show someone. For me, I use folders. Every period has a different folder, and I know that when the work is turned in, it goes into my period 0 folder. I have to go and check it, to the point that the right-hand side of the folder is the submitted work. The left-hand side of the folder is the graded work that I hand back. Being virtual has presented a different challenge, because now things are coming in online. So you really have to, as a teacher, you need to make a schedule for yourself, and you have to stick to that schedule. And it's not just teaching. You have to schedule time for doing your lesson plans and actually thinking about your lessons. You have to schedule time for getting back to parents and students and maybe tutoring some kids. And you have to schedule time for grading your papers. So my day starts at 7:25 technically. But when we were in school, I was always in school by 6:30. Now I log on by 7 o'clock. I give myself, and my first class doesn't start till 8:15. I give myself that hour to hour and 45 minutes in the morning to make sure that I am all put together for the day. And then at the end of the day, if I have a chance, at the end of the day, I always go through all of my emails to make sure that I've responded to them. But as the day progresses, if I have time, when I finish my 0 period class, I have a break. So then I'll look in 0 period again and see if anyone's turned in any work. So what I would tell any new person going into education, get yourself a schedule. And what works for me may not work for you. You may be a person that works a different way. So whatever works for you, but stick to that schedule. Mine is even to the point where I have the bell schedule on the wall. I have a little sticky note next to me that shows from 1:30 to 2:30 every day. On Monday, I do common planning with an inclusion teacher. On Tuesday, we have a professional learning community. Wednesday is common planning. Thursday is normally a faculty meeting, and Friday is professional development. And I am like the queen of sticky notes. I have them all over the place so that it keeps me organized. But that is the biggest thing. Set up a schedule that works for you. And anyone that was coming into education, that would be the biggest thing that I would tell them is get yourself some sort of a planner so that you can schedule things. And that's the best thing I could tell you.
Thank you for that. But I feel as much as they might need a schedule, they need to be consistent with the schedule, because it's all about consistency. Even when we were in school, I've had teachers who told me, oh, they can't find my worksheet, or they don't know where they put it. We have to do the homework assignment all over again. And as much as a student needs to make sure they are on top of their stuff and needs to make sure their homework is in the same place every day to turn it in, teacher needs to be able to make sure, okay, if I'm going to put the homework here every week, I'm going to stick to putting the homework here every week. So I know to go there every week to get the homework and collect it, and there should be no problems. So I agree with you, and I think that is a good piece of advice for a teacher to learn how to stay organized. So the next question that I have is, how should a teacher take care of themselves to not burn out?
Wow. Well, I don't do this, so I don't take my own advice. Don't teach summer school. A lot of people say that, and I teach summer school every summer, but a lot of people say, oh, teachers have it easy. You only work 180 days a year. It's really a part-time job. Why are you getting paid this amount of money? They don't realize everything that goes into teaching. So what I would tell teachers is take advantage of your vacations. Step back. Take a breath. You know, if you are an outdoor person, go someplace, go hiking, go for a bike ride, go camping. I love to go on a cruise. So the day summer school gets out, The Saturday after that, my husband and I are on a boat somewhere going, because on a cruise, I'm too cheap to pay for the cell phone and the internet coverage. So no one can contact me. And that's how I decompress. So I would say take advantage of that. Some people are into yoga and meditation. Other people like to go and get a manicure and a pedicure. I know of men that they're on softball teams or, flag football teams, or they go to the gym, or they go to the park and they play basketball. So carve some time out for yourself. And it's difficult, especially if you're a parent in addition to being a teacher, because after you leave teaching your students, you go home to your kids and you have a lot of things to do. And a lot of teachers have more than one job. So you definitely need to, when you can take that summer off, when you're financially able to, it really is good to just take it off, take a step back, so that when you go back in September, you're refreshed and you're ready for a new group of students and you have a positive outlook.
Thank you. So, Jennifer, would you like to ask anything?
I have another question for you, Miss.
Okay.
What should any future teachers know about teaching in a district?
In Patterson's district or anywhere?
I think in Patterson.
Oh. Well, so here's what I would tell a new teacher. I've taught in 3 different districts. I taught in Montville, which is very upper middle class. I taught in Mount Arlington, which is very small. There were only 2 schools in the district, K-3 and then 4-8. And then kids went to a regional high school. And I left those jobs to come to Patterson. Mind you, I grew up in Patterson. I went to school 27 and I graduated from Kennedy High School. So Patterson has always been near and dear to my heart. But I think you have to go where you fit, where your personality sends you. For me, it was very hard to teach in the suburbs. I wasn't used to classes with, well, the only way to say it is they were all white people. And I wasn't used to that, having grown up in a city. So I would tell anyone that just plans on coming to Patterson, be used to diversity. If you don't like people of all different races, colors, creeds, if you can't get along with people that are a different religion or have a different natural language, Patterson's not the place for you. But if you have an open mind, and most importantly, an open heart, Patterson will be the most fulfilling place that you could ever possibly work. Wherever you go, you're going to have challenges. Parents are going to get on your case, especially if you teach in the suburbs. The suburban children can do no wrong. The teachers are always wrong. The kids are always right. You teach in a small district. Everybody knows your business. The kids knew. I had kids coming to my door in the summer, knocking on the door saying, "Hi, you're going to be my teacher." I don't want to see students in the summer. That was my own private time. But when I came to Patterson, yes, it was like coming home. Are there issues and things that happen in Patterson? Absolutely. Kids don't have the supplies that they should have. They might not have the parental support that they should have, but not all of them. We have some really good kids. They're really smart and really talented. They have really good parents or grandparents. So what should you learn coming to Patterson? Have an open heart, have an open mind. That's what I would tell people.
Thank you for that. To log off of what Jennifer just said, what's something a future teacher should know about working in New Jersey?
Don't do it. I've been doing this for 40 years. It has changed so much. And it's not the kids. We have some of the best kids in the world. It's all of the paperwork and the standardized testing, and these are the standards, and you have to do it this way, and it's the DOLs and the do nows, and they've taken, for lack of a better term, all of the fun out of teaching. So I have a son who teaches down in Virginia, totally different state. No, they don't pay well, but he has the flexibility to do a lot of different things with his students that we don't have, because we are very, very rigid in, you have to take, it used to be the HESPA test. I forget what they call it now, but the test for graduation, and you have to pass it, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. And so for that, I think that New Jersey is actually hurting the cause of future teachers. And I think future teachers, when we get kids out of college, they're facing burnout a lot faster than my generation did. And I really think that a lot of that is because of the pressure that's put on teachers to make sure that your English scores are up and your math scores are up. And now they're starting to include science and history. And they're taking away, there are classes that you have to take. You have to take math, science, English, history. But then there are classes that you want to take. Art, music, some of your business classes, right? Your marketing classes, the classes that has DECA. I had the privilege of going with Miss Grant last year to the DECA competition. I got to see the kids in a whole different light. Kids that were very quiet in my class were very self-confident and able to do things that I would have never guessed they could have done, because they were in a different setting. And it wasn't, yes, it had structure, but it didn't have the state saying, well, in order to be in DECA, you have to have a blankety blank GPA and you have to do this, that, and the other thing. So I think New Jersey is actually doing a disservice to our students by being so geared towards how are you doing on standardized tests. We all know some people are great at standardized tests and they're terrible students. Other people are terrible at standardized tests and they're great students. Standardized testing doesn't tell you the be all and end all of every child. And I really think that that's what New Jersey is currently focusing on, where we also should be focusing on the individual child's strengths and building on those strengths and being able to show them, yes, maybe you're great in art and I can show you how you can apply that into math. But New Jersey currently doesn't allow us that flexibility.
Thank you for that. And I have one last question, and then we'll see if Jennifer has anything else to say. My last question to you is, do you have a success story that you can share with a future teacher?
A teacher success story or a success story about a student?
If you can give both, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
So there was a year that I was teaching, and I was teaching an Algebra 2 course, and I had a young man who was relatively new to the United States, and English was not his primary language. And if you're in my class, I'm going to call on people. And he stayed after class one day and said, please don't call on me. I don't feel confident in my English to be able to respond and not have kids make fun of me. Now, we had this conversation in English because I don't know another language, and I understood everything he had to say. So I promised I would never embarrass him, and I would only ever call on him if he raised his hand. Well, that was when he was a junior. As a senior, he would come to me with his English papers and I would help him. When he went to college, he would come back to Kennedy and I would help him. He is now a science teacher, and I believe it's Elizabeth, and he's doing fantastic. So it's all because of that little bit of hand holding and letting him know that I would never humiliate him. And now he has gone from being someone who wouldn't want to talk to being a very excellent science teacher. So that to me would be a big success story. And a success story as far as a teacher, staying in teaching, I think just the fact that if we take our school BTMF and you take a look at the teacher turnover rate, we don't have that many teachers that leave our academy. It's like once we get them here, 99% of them stay. So I think that the biggest success that a teacher can have is twofold. Number one, how long are you staying someplace? Because that must mean you're doing something right. Number two, you have to have an administrator or an administrative team that is supportive and letting you know that even if you make a mistake, we're there, we're going to back you up. And if you need help, we'll get you the help that you need as a teacher to get over that hurdle. And number three, I think the biggest success story is graduation day. And that's for every teacher, that we can go to graduation and we can watch these kids that we saw from when they were little freshmen walking in the building, and now they are seniors and they're graduating and they're starting their actual life. You know, how much more wonderful can that possibly be? To see somebody know who they are and know that they're going to get that diploma and they're going to move on, whether it's into a job, whether it's going into a 2 or a 4 year college, or maybe it's going into like a Lincoln Tech, you know, getting a certificate to be a plumber or an electrician. That's the success story for every teacher. I make good money. I don't do this for the money. When I started teaching, I started at $11,000 a year. And I went to Montville because they paid more than Patterson. Patterson only paid $10,000 at the time. Well, now, if any of you have part-time jobs, you probably make more than that amount of money as a part-time job being a cashier somewhere. And that's what I went to college for. So I didn't go to college to be a teacher because I knew I was going to make a lot of money. I came because I like people. And if you haven't guessed, I like talking. So being a teacher, I can talk, I can interact with kids. When I was younger, I could relate to what they were doing. As I got older and had my own kids, I looked at it from a parent's point of view. And even though my kids are grown, I still look at it from a parent's point of view. And I always believe the biggest success story for any teacher is if they look at a kid and say, you're my kid. Maybe I didn't bear you, but you are my kid. And I am going to be concerned about you. And when you walk across that stage, I'm probably going to cry. So that to me is the best success story that I can tell you for any teacher.
Thank you for that. And walking across the stage is a success story for teachers, and it's a success story for students as well. Knowing we came in as freshmen, not knowing who we are exactly, knowing what we could do, knowing the potential we have, but maybe not knowing how to use it properly, messing up a few times, to now know that, okay, now I'm a senior, I'm graduating, I'm getting this diploma to now really start my life, to really be the adult that high school molded me to be. I can't wait for that day. I can't wait for that day. And I know Jennifer, Anthony, and all the BTMF, SET, ACT, and STEM seniors can't wait for that day as well.
Absolutely. But just realize once you walk out that door, it doesn't mean that you've left us. If you ever need us, we're there. We're not going anywhere.
Thank you for that. Jennifer, do you have any questions before we conclude this interview?
No, I don't have no more questions. That's it.
Okay. Thank you so much for inviting me to this. It was very enjoyable. A little bit scary, but still enjoyable.
Thank you, Ms. Chowhan, for sharing your experience and your journey as a teacher for the audience today. I know that it will be very beneficial for any future teachers watching. And on the behalf of my colleagues and I, we just want to say thank you. Also, see you in the next interview of Virtual Career Fair BTMF.